the first day of Lunar New Year. I came on last night just for a brief amount of time to check in. And so today, let's do our episode number 53. And we're going to be talking about the year of the fire horse and maybe a little bit of one, because it's a 1 year. Everything, when you add 2026 together, it becomes 10 or 1, which is the binary number, which is 1 and 0. And it is also a 1 number, so we're going to be going into that a little bit. Very much a lot of creation here, and so we're going to be talking about that. So first and foremost, my name is Amelie, and I am the host and the creator of Soulestic Intelligence, and you're watching the Soulestic Intelligence podcast. Like I said, today is episode number 53, and so we're going to be talking about a lot of that energy that we had in 2025, the 9 year, the year of the snake, the year of the wood snake, and now we're going to be moving into some fire energy. So fire energy is very much spirited and momentous. So let's get started. It's very great. I'm very grateful to be back after a little bit of time away. I needed that time to kind of refresh and get some new information in. And when I say new information, I'm talking about energetically, we're bringing in new information. I know I'm a little bit early today than my scheduled podcast, but I wanted to do it early because I have my roommate is making dinner, and so I didn't want to take too long in my podcast. So, whew, all right, we've got from shedding, which is the snake year. If you think about snakes, they shed their skin, and so they become a new identity, and so that's really what happened. And as I mentioned in the last podcast that I did in the last episodes, the transformation of shedding the identities that we've grown accustomed to in that previous 10-year span, now we're moving into something new. So we're going from shedding into this horse year, which is galloping. And a big part of this, at least for me, and maybe it'll resonate with you, and you're here because it does resonate. Hello, Engelopes. Did I say that right? I don't know if I did, but hello and welcome. Thank you for joining. So we're going to be I'm going to be talking about a lot about reclaiming the safety of our own being, because we're moving into that 1 year. We're going to be talking a lot about sovereignty this year because it is that 1 year, that 1 or a 10 year. One is really just focused on this inner part of yourself. And we're going to be talking about love of your family and the relationships around you. Okay. So we had a little bit of a dark night with that snake energy. Phil Niderer, welcome, hello. He doesn't care. Okay, or she, whatever. Doesn't care. All right, that's cool. So really what I've kind of come to see is that I've kind of had this dark night, and maybe a lot of you are experiencing it. I've heard a lot of murmurings in the field about how, it was a really tough year last year. And the dark night of the transformation setting into the momentum of this year is going to be felt deeply. Love you, Dad. Love you, Dad. So as I've shared, openly with everybody on my podcast, a couple years ago, my mother passed away, and she was a huge figure in my life. And so she didn't leave a will. She didn't have any anything saying like, this is how I want the end of my life to be. And so that really rested on the family to figure out what's going to happen. So there's a lot of family politics that go into that. So if you're listening to this and you have family, and it doesn't matter how old you are, really get your affairs in order so that you can give a little bit of comfort to those around you who are going to be figuring out like, how is my estate gonna be handled. Um, because of not having that, the estate issues. Hello, I don't even know how to say it, but hello and welcome. Thank you for joining. Um, a lot of the family politics and the politics in general kind of became a little bit of a trigger. It was hard for me to figure that out. I'm the oldest of the children that she had. I'm the firstborn. And, trying to figure out how we're going to maneuver around that became a huge trigger for me because one, you're dealing with, it was a very heartbreaking moment of losing my mother, and then also trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to handle the estate? Because that wasn't set in place, there was a lot of feelings of being erased, like the legacy and the ancestry, that there was a certain amount of burning that went into that. So feeling erased, maybe like the legacy isn't going to last, and really working through that was a bit of a challenge. And then it really opened up to like where my attachments were. So I had lost my mom, and then also last year I lost my uncle. And so it really just brought up these really deep feelings of generational trauma, and then the generational things that you have to work through because you are tied to these people, of the attachments that were with that. And so a lot of people deal with codependency with their families. Mine especially was a huge theme last year, especially with the passing of my uncle, and just watching that kind of unfold, knowing that, my cousins were kind of going through a similar thing that I was going through. Mike is in the house. Mike's birthday was on Friday. Happy birthday, Mike. I hope you had a wonderful time. And then the other thing that we're going to be talking about, another dark night moment, was feeling a little bit of anxiety and really kind of going through this bodily anxiety, and then also having this mental calm or mental clarity, and feeling both of those things at once. Kindred, hello. Sorry I hadn't been around here. Oh, you're fine. I took a little bit of a hiatus anyways, and so this is just a brand new year, brand new us. So a lot of the times we'll experience these dark nights and it'll feel like collapse. Like everything is collapsing around you. Everything feels a little final, and it's a little terrifying to be going through that feeling. However, as I'm going through it, I'm really trying to metabolize it, and it's really just a shedding of a former identity. So when people pass away, like, you have to kind of step into a different identity because of these relationships that are not around you. Yeah, everyone like and subscribe, please. Yeah, I love that when there's, especially if you're in the chat and you're watching and, commenting and having a conversation. It really is, it's actually really nice for me. I like to hear those kind of things. Just the feedback from people. So there's a couple different archetypes. Like I was talking about, we've got that snake archetype, which is introspection, right? Kind of, snakes are not very communal creatures, not like horses are, for sure. So you've got this really introspective energy, a lot of containment, maybe a little bit of hermiting, and I found that there was a lot of survival intelligence that goes into it, even survival adaptation, that I'll be talking about in a few weeks in another stream because they're all scheduled out. The snake is very much a transformational figure in archetype in stories, and so that archetype is sitting from where we've come from. And now we're going into this horse archetype. And horses, you know, we've all seen horses. They're very much movement. They're very much visible. You know, they're sitting out there. They're not hiding under a rock like a snake would be. They're out in the fields and just galloping and having a good time. And so you really get this embodied freedom when you think about horses. I mean, we all have seen them, and even equine therapy is a huge thing because those horses are really just connected with not just the other horses around them, but with whomever is caring for them as well. Okay, so we've got that archetype. Now, this theme that's going to be coming up in this year is you cannot gallop in old skin, okay? So I think about fresh wineskins. I'm thinking about a fresh horse. Like when you get on a fresh horse, it feels very freeing because that horse is ready to just go wherever you want to go, or maybe wherever it wants to go. And so, you know, you're just galloping out into the world. All right, so that's kind of a little bit of a basis of what we're chatting about today. Sounds like every night for me, the energy seems to be stronger when you're going to bed or when you're first waking up in the morning. Yeah, so I'm glad that you brought that up because I've had a few restless nights where it's like, okay, this night I'm going to sleep all the way through, this night I'm going to sleep all the way through. And then there's one night where it's just like, I just can't sleep. I'm so energized. I'm so like ready to go and do something. And so that's kind of an interesting take. And then first waking up in the morning, I love waking up in the morning and doing that routine of getting ready to go do whatever it is. And so having work be that routine, there's a certain comfort to that. Today was a horrible wake up call. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I saw your post, Kindred Angels, and I'm, you know, very much aware. I think a lot of the energy that's out there right now is just kind of, even today, I feel like a little, I don't know, even say anxious. It's just like, oh, let's go do something, you know? All right. So part of the snake work that was going on last year, what that identity shedding that was happening, for me personally, it was realizing that protection was unreliable. So protection from family members is unreliable. Protection from my mother is no longer identity, and moving into a place of where I can provide those protections for myself. So the shift in identity there is instead of externally validating some form of protection, now I have to kind of go within and say, you know what, I feel safe, I'm protected, and you know I can go and do whatever. The unreliability was very interesting to kind of move through, and there was lots of tears shed. Shedding for me also was, you know, of parental abandonment, not from my mother, but from my father. And, you know, a lot of us experience that. You know, I know that there's a lot of, you know, divorce and separation that happens out in the world as far as relationships go. And so that abandonment can be felt in families that are kind of dealing with that separation in their lives. Aw. The other part of the shedding for me was also seeing the limitations of my the human limitations of my mother, and really recognizing that, you know, she did the best that she could, and there were moments where I wasn't being protected or being advised in the way that I needed. And it took me up until, you know, my age now to really identify and name it, and then move into a place where I can embody that limitation that I felt and overcome it. So we're really shedding a lot of that as well. When there's inconsistency, or even when there is when there is consistency, it is also another thing to not look at that by bracing yourself of, okay, this person's going to be consistent for, a short while, and then they're going to let me down. So being able to identify when the suspicions start rising, when I feel like I need to brace myself because maybe there is some inconsistency, and now I have to use some survival adaptation mechanisms that I've developed in handling those situations. That is a theme of shedding that I've been working on as well. And then understanding the difference between that survival mechanism, there's survival adaptation mechanism of bracing yourself. And what I mean by bracing yourself is, you want a certain outcome, or maybe there's a certain outcome happening, and now you need to figure out how you're going to work around it. So you're going to have to use your mental intelligence, your physical intelligence to figure out, how am I going to get around this? Now, bracing is still a survival mechanism, and I talk a lot about nervous system, the nervous system, and how the nervous system is so important to how it's responding to the external environments that are happening. If you're bracing yourself, you're still kind of working in that survival context. And really, the the message I'm getting right now is, instead of bracing yourself, just embrace the openness of all the possibilities that can happen, because there's a multitude of possibilities that can happen and will happen. Yeah, I just had this happen where a friend wanted to forget about me, which is completely understandable, and I was fine with it because I knew I would be okay. Yeah, the relationships are going to be changing. Like, they're just going to be shifting, and the way that I look at that is, you I'm calling it like a feeling of being tidal, where the tide will go to low, and it will feel, you'll be able to see everything, and you kind of just hermit. And then on high tide, it's just like all encompassing, huge waves, everything is covered. So we're moving from that bracing part of that tidal wave to being open and just kind of seeing what's there, and touching everything, if you're thinking about it in a wave. One of the key insights here is that suspicion isn't a lack of desire. It's not a lack of wanting a certain outcome. It's the suspicion comes through as an unhealed bracing. You're just bracing yourself and kind of tightening, like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? So we're looking past that, and opening ourselves up to all the possibilities, instead of that unhealed bracing moment where you think, oh, this is the only way that something is going to be resolved, or if I don't handle and control this, then this is going to happen. So you're kind of limiting the potential outcomes, because now you're like, oh, I have to control it, and it's going to be this certain way. Whereas that openness is like, oh, okay, I wonder what's going to happen. That person, that friend has left me. I just recently found out one of my friends passed away a month ago, and pretty sad about pretty sad about that. Other things are, I lost my phone, and then I lost all my contacts, and it's like, okay, now I don't have those people to contact. Now it's opened this possibility of new people coming in and new relationships developing. And so just really kind of changing my mindset to that closed, here's the context that I'm working in, to now I'm open to all these new possibilities. Oh, thanks, Mike. Thank you. I am not seeing that. Hi, Edith. I'm wondering what that, if that is a emoji that I can't see. It looks like just some figures. So we've got a couple different types of attachment here, right? We're looking at this despair attachment, where that bracing kind of just limits you, and it's a little bit of a despair mindset to think that it's only going to work out this way. And a lot of people that have the thinking of, oh, everything is not going to work out. This is always going to happen. Like when you start to believe those things, that's what's going to happen. And that's what's beautiful about this horse energy of expansion and travel and movement and freedom is you start to see how when you, let's say that you go to another state or another city outside of one that you're normally in, it kind of breaks all of your normal routine habits that you have in your day to day and shows you that, oh, there's other possibilities. So that traveling and freedom just opens up that world of possibilities. And that's what makes this year particularly beautiful, because that is our center energy that we're looking at. I'm opening Spanish. Oh, I'm opening Spanish. Yeah, this is in English. Okay. So that the other side of the despair is this destiny attachment. So if we're open to what kind of destinies are possible, that attachment is going to feel a lot different than the despair one, the one that's just like, okay, we're on this like one line. This is the only way that things are going to happen. And I'm very much, I've very much been in both of these particular attachments to any outcomes. And so I know a little bit about each of them, and you guys probably do as well. Um, the other thing is having some relief response to imagined energies, right? So if we're thinking that things are going to happen a certain way because we've pattern recognized that that's the way it's going to be, there might be, if you have some consistency in your friendships, you're going to have a little bit more of a relief. If you're seeing consistency and you're having a different reaction than relief, that is something definitely to look at. The other thing, especially in relationships, that I've been kind of milling about of, what is it like is intensity versus the consistency. Like, do you have to have the intensity, the drama, the excitement of a situation, or do you like the consistency, like this consistent, reliable energy around you? Hopefully that lands. Um, so the next part of what we're going to be talking about today is, as I'm working through doing this estate, handling the estate of my mother, looking at it from a symbolic lens, like it's been really challenging for me. So sometimes when I even start to think about it, I feel really deeply rage, anger, betrayal, like a lot of these really serious, deep emotions about it. And I have to kind of pause. Well, I'm kind of made up to pause myself of feeling those ways and look at, okay, are the objects really that important? Is it really a sign of your lineage? Obviously, like having photos and all these other things that have their family heirlooms, family albums, and the things like that are, how am I looking at that? So from a symbolic perspective, is that object really defining the lineage, or am I defining it? Um, Looking at legacy as well, is how is that legacy a part of my identity? Like, how much does it really matter in the grand scheme of things to be tied to a certain legacy? Am I limiting my legacy? And how am I going to how am I going to take that legacy and go with it? And I have children, and so really just pouring into them has been very important to me. In fact, yesterday, well, the night before last, my son came into my room and he was like, I'm having a really difficult time. And I was like, okay, well, let's talk about what's going on. And you know, there's a lot of deep adult things that he's going through that I'm not going to share with you guys, but he's going through a lot and in adolescence, and also, um, you know, I think adolescence is hard in itself. That's a really difficult uh, shift in identity, for anybody that's gone through it. So if you're watching this, chances are you've already gone through your adolescence, and you know how challenging it was to, you know, to be 11, 12, 13, 14, and just really trying to come into your own. And you know, there's a lot of limitations that you can be stuck with when you're going through that. So opening those possibilities. So I was like, you know what, um, we're just gonna have a nice little, I called it a mental health day, but it's just like, let's just, you know, you do well in school, you know, your teachers give you good reports, like, we're just gonna take a day, okay? The beautiful thing about that is it's breaking some of the, there's like this American spirit of the more you grind, the more you hustle. Anytime stress happens, you just power through it. But here I'm saying, let's just stop. Let's just stop. Take a day where you don't have to think about any of those things. Like, let's just leave it on the table and work to rest your mind, rest your body, you know, rest your soul a little bit and just relax. And so that's what we did. And in doing that, I observed, well, when I was a kid, I was just a perfectionist. I wanted to go to school, I wanted to get good grades, and that was just my drive. I didn't realize that there was a moment that I could take and say, hey, mom, I really need a break from this. Like, this is a lot. I need a break from it. Like, that just was unheard of. Nobody really does that. Even now, I think it's not very common for somebody to keep their child out of school unless there's, you know, they're seriously ill or whatever. It's like, nope, you go, you go, you go. And I just don't want to implant that into my child and into their future. Let's see. It's very good. He feels comfortable coming to you for his feelings. I don't go to anyone. They're not so good at calming me or talking to me, so I don't. Yeah, that's, I mean, and that's another thing is like being able to come and say, hey, look, I'm having this situation going on. And then we talk about it. Okay, well, what can we do to resolve that? What actions can you take? Can we pursue different hobbies? And so we talked about some potential different hobbies to go through, and one of them is going to be strength training, and then the other one is going to be doing some games with, uh, you know, peers. And you know, I think those things are important. Having that integration of the social aspect of our lives into it, and then learning that, you know, I can come to my parent and they're going to hear me and they're going to take actions that are going to be in my best, be for my best, right? Oh, was Alfie unsatisfied? Okay, so, you know, going into the next discussion that I have laid out here, as far as the inheritance situation and the, you know, it's not just physical things that I inherited. There's like responses that you learn from being in certain environments that, um, that feeling of being unprotected. I was able to protect my son in a way that I wasn't protected. And it didn't cause me to be, you know, I wasn't envious of like, oh my gosh, I didn't get this when I was a kid. And I wasn't like throwing that in his face either. I was just saying, you know, let's just take care of you right now. Here's what we can do immediately. And then here's what we can do as far as long-term goals, even though they're kind of short-term, long-term goals of shifting and changing that for you. Um, oh, you guys are awesome. Thank you. All right. Um, so feeling unprotected by the family system that I was being raised in, had, I'm right now I'm metabolizing and shifting that identity in me. And also I get to act it out for my children of, you can come to me, like, let's talk about it and let's figure out some different ways that we can handle it. So the shift here is the legacy is not objects, right? The legacy is the energy that you're providing for not just your future, but this also changes the ancestral line, okay? It's called retrocausality. So when you start to shift things in yourself, and we're going to start to see a big shift in the world, because right now we're kind of going through this change, not just on this micro scale, but on a macro scale, things start to shift, right? So early on, maybe it was like 15 years ago, I realized that when that I can't control and change anything outside of myself. I can only control and change myself. And so once I started doing that, it starts to kind of realign the things in your life. And it works both forward and then it works backwards. So in Native American, uh, there's a Native American saying of 7 generations. So you look forward 7 generations and you look back 7 generations. Well, why would you look back? Because time is not linear. Time is very much not linear. Um, it's a cyclical thing. You can definitely go into the 4D and start moving things around. And that retrocausality of when you start to shift yourself, like let's say that you overcome codependency, that starts to change even the ancestral line that has passed, and then also it's shifting the future. So you're kind of doing some time bending, some time traveling when you're doing the retrocausality, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I'll go deeper into it in another stream. So protection also kind of fits into this. So a lot of people I see, they feel subject to all the ills that are happening in the world, and they're just kind of in fear state because of that. But that protection, it's not retroactive. The things that happened to you in the past are not necessary. They don't have to be true today, okay? It's not retroactive. You can shift that, the way that you look at yourself, the way that your identity is presented. You can start making changes to that, and it's really amazing when you're able to do that, because then you realize that you are protected. And then once you start to feel protected, you move out of those survival adaptations of having to have full coherence in order to, make things happen, to be strategic in order to like safeguard yourself, okay? So that protection is not retroactive. It can be shifted in real time. And then the last shift that we're going to be talking about, so we got legacy is not objects, we've got protection is not retroactive, and then we've got sovereignty is forward facing, right? So sovereignty is just really being within yourself, understanding the inner sanctuary that you've got, and keeping it clean, and working through all the things that you're here to work through. And it's very much forward facing, because now it like opens that openness that we were talking about. That sovereignty opens up the rest of that forward facing wherever you're going. So for me, a big thing that happened over the last couple years is this fantasy of being protected by some white knight, somebody coming in and protecting me and shielding me from, all the things that felt terrifying. That fantasy died, okay? And now this this capacity to protect myself is now forming, okay? It's being born, it's forming, and that's part of that identity shift. And there's a concept, multiplicity, where you can be doing multiples of these things at the same time and shifting the way that you kind of move through your life. All right. Okay, moving on to the next. I'm doing good on time. This is awesome. Normally I just drone on, but I'm doing really good today. So the next one is we're going to be talking about that horse energy, which is expansion after the integration. So once we start to shed all that stuff, and it's not going to happen overnight. It's not like, okay, yesterday that was it, and now we don't talk about that. We acknowledge it, and then we move forward in our expansion, okay? So the horse archetype theme is that movement without bracing yourself. It's moving forward with openness and not being scared of, what potentially could happen. That scared of potentially what could happen is that bracing moment. So we're moving forward without bracing. So visibility without annihilation. And this is a topic that a lot of people talk about, and they call it imposter syndrome, okay? That visibility is going to destroy me kind of feeling. If they find out who I really am, I'm going to be, you know, extinct or whatever. And that annihilation fear, when we're moving into this horse archetype and we're kind of integrating that into our being visible is not terrifying anymore, right? I can come on and do a live stream and be okay. And there are moments where that does come in. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go in and talk. It does take a lot of energy and putting it all together and all that stuff. But having that visibility without the annihilation fear, removing that imposter syndrome feeling, that's definitely this expansion after our integration. Okay. The next thing is partnership without collapse. Okay. Losing parents, losing friends, losing family members, it does feel very much collapsing, and I can see how long it took me to overcome the death of my father when I was 25. And it took me a few years, and even still I kind of am working on integrating that. But with the passing of my mother, it was a lot faster, and passing of my uncle is a lot faster, because now instead of entirely collapsing into the grief and all the feelings that come along with that, now I can stand firm without collapsing. Okay. And I'm still able to maintain partnerships without collapse too. So even though some old friends may have gone their own way, which is fine, everybody kind of comes and goes, I can look forward to new partnerships and know that, the new partnerships, there's going to be ones that leave, and that's fine, but I don't have to collapse every time that they come and go. Okay. With the expansion and the integration, we're really looking at this body first regulation. So we're listening to our body. If our body is starting to tense up, it's bracing. It's telling us something, like you're bracing. So really being mindful of how, when something good happens, how your body feels, and when something not so good happens, how your body is reacting to those situations. We're thinking body first because that is our nervous system physically telling us what is going on. So the other thing, I was talking about consistency and how important it is to have people in your life that are consistent. And I mean, nothing to you, Mike. I know that you're an Aquarius, but it was very interesting for me to see all my Aquarian relationships just drop off. And I'm like, man, either it's me or they're going through something. Like I don't know if you experienced that, Mike, but that is, it was an interesting observation. Like every single one of the Aquarians, except for my roommate who's staying with me, um, like disappeared, face off the face of the map. And I was like, I have no idea what's happening, what's going on. Like, why is this happening? And so my conclusion was, oh, they must be just going through it. There must be some heavy things that they don't need my energy. They're just working through it themselves. And so that was really interesting. But it really made me start to think about the consistency of how do I allow the consistency to bring me the evidence, right? So I'm kind of like on the fence about that one. It's just a little a little discussion point. Um, and then in other relationships, the consistency of, you know, meeting new people. Are they, you know, you've got to vet them a little bit. Like, are they here for my highest good? And if so, you know, how am I going to take that in? Um, Finally, you know, in developing these relationships, allowing the relief of the consistency to be a sort of compass. Okay, this person is consistent. They're not, you know, faking who they are. Like if I go on a date with somebody, um, how do I know that they're going to be consistent? So I'm allowing a certain amount of relief to be my compass. Like, do I feel relieved around them, or am I kind of bracing myself of like, I don't know what you're about. Um, so the core message here with the horse energy is expansion isn't a loud thing. It's not louder. It's just more freeing. So you feel more open. Okay. Now I have one more. I wanted to stay under an hour, so I'm doing really good. Um, so in the next part of what I want to talk about, and then I'll close, is having some practical horse year commitments, okay? So this year we're not chasing intensity. We're chasing openness and, you know, things that bring us joy and that freedom, that open feeling, that expanded feeling. This is not a year to hermit, okay? It's not a year to hermit. This is a year to explore, go outside of your comfort zone, to discover new things about yourself, and maybe metabolize some of the things about yourself that you work through in our snake year. We're not chasing intensity though, okay? That's one thing. We're only responding to consistency, and I'm speaking for myself, but I'm only responding to consistency. If somebody ghosts me, not gonna, I'm just done. Like, I've kind of just come to that part in my life where, okay, that person just does not want me to be in their life anymore. And that's fine. The other thing is, you know, as I'm moving through, sorting through this estate, doing it calmly and, you know, through every legal mechanism that I can so that it's not a huge emotional trigger for me. You know, a big thing that I had to realize was I can't be mad at the family politics of the people that are around right now. I'm just disappointed that my mother didn't have it all written out. And that's really how I had to metabolize it. It wasn't betrayal or anger or whatever, which those themes will come up and I'll have to kind of face it as those do. But it really is just the disappointment of my family member not having that written out, not having it sorted. and leaving a lot of guesswork for the people that were left behind to sort through it. Okay. Another practical commitment you can make during this horse year is protecting your sleep and your nervous system. We need rest. We need a regulated nervous system. We're protecting that part of ourselves, okay? We're protecting that sleep. It's important to rest. That rest, digest, repair, regenerate part of that mechanism, part of our human body is so important, okay? And so take mental health days. Call it a sick day. I got a migraine. And then just, if you got to lay in bed all day, do it. Don't think about, oh, I'm going to disappoint this person. I'm going to disappoint that person. Like, that thinking has got to go out the window. All right? We need rest. And so protecting that rest within ourselves is important. And if you have children, not pushing them so hard that they don't feel like they can rest, okay? So you're teaching them. I was taught to just grind, right? And that hasn't served me very well. And now I think, how am I going to regulate my nervous system the best? Next weekend, I'm going to the coast, and, you know, I've booked a couple massages. I'm going to go visit my girlfriend. I booked a couple massages. We're going to go have, you know, meals. We're going to sit in a hot tub. We're going to walk on the beach. You know, whatever. Go gamble. Like, whatever makes us feel good, we're going to go do that. It's just going to be a rested weekend. Okay? So being really conscious and putting those little Easter eggs, I like to call it, in your life where, okay, on this weekend I'm traveling here. On this weekend I'm, you know, doing this, and this is going to be a way to rejuvenate myself. So let's start, you know, thinking about ourselves and planning those little events to help protect our rest cycles. All right? Okay. This is not, so I'm just going to close with this. This is not a year that you're surviving, okay? This is not the year to survive. That was last year, so leave it in last year. This is the year that we are going to move. We're moving forward with ourselves. We're moving forward with the hobbies that we want to try. Like, just, we're moving forward with openness. Everything is on the table. And we're going to figure out what we want to do that's on the table, okay? It's a big table. We're going to look at the table, and we're going to say, you know what? I really liked ballroom dancing. I'm going to go and commit myself to this. I really like hiking. I'm going to go check out these places, and I'm going to really be candid about what days I'm going to do that, okay? It's winter time right now, and if you're in the mountains, there's a lot of hot springs. I'm going to commit myself to going to, you know, a new hot spring in the month of March. Just being really, really committed. We're not surviving. We need to move out of that, that fight, flight, freeze, fawn situation. Doesn't matter what's in the news. We're just going to put it away. We're resting. We're going to be a fresh horse, and we're going to move into this new year with new energy and expansion and openness, and ready to see what kind of options do I have on the table. Okay? We're not relegating ourselves to one option. We're taking all the options and we're looking at all of them. All right? Let's see. I got 10 minutes. I got 10 minutes. See if we can do a little 10 minutes. Let's talk about Pegasus. Yeah. Okay. So Pegasus is a Greek myth, and Pegasus was born from violence. All right. I talked about Medusa. I can't remember what stream it was, but I did talk about Medusa. Okay. Pegasus was born from violence, born from the death of Medusa. And Medusa is a whole story, and you can go back into my archive and check out that story. But even though Pegasus was born of violence, that Pegasus became the symbol of transcendence, okay? Transcendence and divine inspiration. That's what I love about travel is you get all these new inspirations. It opens you up. I love traveling. I think it's so wonderful. My energy is just like, talk about shining, okay? But Pegasus, even though this chaotic death was happening and, Pegasus was born, Pegasus was not chaos, okay? Pegasus was elevated power. So, what does this symbolically mean? Is that the pain does not eliminate your ability to rise. In fact, I would say it refines it, which is really interesting that I called last year the year of refinement, not knowing what was going to happen in the year and how refined I would be and how put to the fire I was. Okay? So I often think, would I want to relieve my pain? Would I want to relieve it if I could not feel pain ever again? And, the answer is no, I wouldn't. The pain, it assists the refinement of yourself because it helps you to recognize, oh, there's something going on here, right? Oh, my head hurts. Like, I have a headache. I keep on getting migraines. Well, there's something going on. Episode 31, the Medusa effect. Yes, definitely talked about Pegasus there. And I can't necessarily name off the top of my head because there was two, I think it was like a giant or something that was also born. But symbolically, that pain, I was playing Hogwarts Legacy, and spoiler alert if you haven't played it yet. But the story, the main storyline, the main plot of this game was there was a witch who was able to remove pain. And by removing the pain, emotional pain from people, she was harnessing all this powerful energy, and it could be used for good or bad, but she was removing the pain from her father. And the other, I can't remember what they're called. They're not seekers. They were like protecting this energy. They were able to see like this ancient energy. And the storyline is like they were all just like shocked. Why would you do that to somebody? Why would you remove their pain? And she just didn't want her father to pass away, and wanted to take all his pain away. And she's like, oh my gosh, I can do it. But yeah, if you could do it, would you remove your pain? And they were trying to dissuade her, and she was just persuaded that it had to be this way. And it really got me to thinking, as I'm playing the game, I'm like, man, this is a really heavy storyline, one, and would I want to do that? I mean, my answer is no. Her answer was she was for it, but she couldn't see like how much of a problem it was. So the pain refines. If you get a pain in your stomach, it's telling that your body is telling you something. Do you know any Rammstein? Like Du hast? I used to listen to Rammstein when they came out back in the day. Okay. So, you know, really thinking about how that pain is not necessarily eliminating your ability to rise, and that it's refining it, that it is showing you something that you need to pay attention to. If your stomach's hurting, if your head's hurting, like, you need to pay attention to it because your body's telling you something. Seeing some Rammstein. I only know Du hast. Now that song is going to be stuck in my head. I'm going to probably play it after this. But really thinking about Pegasus, that freedom after the trauma. So the trauma of being born after the death of Medusa, his mother. He wasn't necessarily like going into annihilation, right? So we're not going into annihilation after we go through trauma. There's a certain freedom of like, oh, okay, that's what it was, and then laying it down, shedding it, and then being okay with it and being able to, you know, work through it quickly, like when those feelings come up of whatever the pain is. And recognizing that you're not annihilating yourself. Okay? You're in an ascension state. So really this horse here can be looked at, if you're thinking about Pegasus, that symbolic divine inspiration and transcendence that comes from it. I remember playing Magic the Gathering, and there was a Pegasus on the card, and it was like the ability of the Pegasus was transcending, okay? So beautiful energy. So Pegasus energy says, what was born from pain can carry you higher. And maybe I'll do a bonus stream and we'll talk about Chiron, because I think that will be really interesting to kind of integrate into what we're talking about in the next 4 weeks. But that being born from pain can carry you higher. And Chiron is known as the wounded healer. And it's like whatever pain that you have, once you've transcended that pain, now you're able to help other people move through that by sharing and testifying of, you know, how your experience was. Okay, so that aligns, like this Pegasus energy aligns with how I parent differently than my mom did or my dad did. Okay, by refusing to accept grind culture or hustle culture as acceptable. You know, taking rest days is okay. And then rewriting what masculine safety looks like to me, what consistency looks like to me. And maybe for you, it might be rewriting feminine safety. What is it like to be, you know, nurtured, if that's something that you didn't get? I have a friend who his mother did not nurture him. She did the exact opposite. And it's been really amazing watching him move through that trauma energy. And maybe as he describes it, it's hard for other people to understand what he's going through. And it'll take a little bit of time to refine like the experience in a way that is digestible for, you know, most of the public to understand. But it's getting there, right? First it's recognizing it, and then it's like kind of cycling through it, metabolizing it, right? When we metabolize it, we're just kind of breaking it down. Okay, now what do we got? Break it down again. Now what do we got? Break it down again. And so, and it takes time for that. And the more that you do it, the more your muscle, like it's a muscle memory, and the more that you do it, the faster you get at it. To where when something used to take 4 years and now it can take mere hours, is once you recognize that you're doing that, you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm pretty amazing. That's cool. What am I at? 1 hour? All right. I love you guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode 53. I am going to be calling it a night. Please check my schedule, subscribe, and if you want reminders of when I'm coming on, please go ahead and set that. Like I said, I think I'm going to do a bonus stream this weekend on Chiron, and I might do that as a full episode, and so I'll just kind of change some of my other information around. But I think it will be great, and maybe I'll share, if I get past Chiron, I'll share some other stories, we'll do some other horse stories. Depends on how I'm feeling. So, all right, guys. Mike, good to see you. Thank you for joining. Kindred Angels, good to see you as well. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I will see you guys next week. All right, cheers. Take care.